Emma could still hear the echo of church bells in her memory, though it had been nearly 7 years since that day. The white dress, the scent of lilies, the nervous smile Daniel had worn as he slipped the ring onto her finger. These images came to her not as joyful recollections, but as fragile photographs curling at the edges. She had vowed to love him, till death do us part, believing it meant forever. Only now did she realize how heavy those words could feel when forever no longer resembled love. In the first months, Daniel's love had been intoxicating. He had looked at her as if she were the center of the world, as if nothing beyond their shared walls could touch them. But over the years, that gaze had sharpened into something else: scrutiny. His affection, once generous, had become conditional, dependent on the meals she prepared, the clothes she wore, the tone of her laughter when they entertained his colleagues. Emma stirred her tea at the kitchen table, watching the sugar dissolve into a swirl. Outside, the evening shadows lengthened across the yard, and the quiet of the house pressed down on her. Daniel was late again. He always said the same thing: meetings, clients, work you wouldn't understand. She caught herself glancing at the clock too often, each tick an intrusion. Marriage had taught her patience, but also how silence could wound more than words. The front door finally opened. Heavy footsteps crossed the hall. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his tie loosened, his jaw set tight. "You didn't wait for me," he said, his eyes flicking to the empty dinner plate beside hers. Emma forced a smile. "I didn't know when you'd be back. You know I don't like eating alone." His tone wasn't raised, but the weight of it made her chest tighten. "I'll heat it up," she offered softly. Daniel didn't answer. He hung his jacket with deliberate care, movements precise as if the smallest detail out of place could ruin him. Emma turned toward the stove, her hands trembling just enough to make the pan rattle. Behind her, his voice came again, lower this time. "You've changed, Emma. You used to wait, you used to—" She spun, cutting him off with a sudden sharpness she hadn't meant to release. "And you used to come home on time." The silence that followed was jagged, dangerous. For a moment she thought he might strike the table or her, but instead Daniel only stared at her with a cold smile that never reached his eyes. "I work hard so you can have this life," he murmured, stepping close. "Don't forget that." Emma nodded, swallowing her words. Survival in their marriage often meant silence. Yet as he brushed past her to sit down, she caught his reflection in the kitchen window. His face, darkened by the fading light, seemed almost unfamiliar, as though the man she had married had long since disappeared. Later, as she lay in bed beside him, listening to his steady breathing, her mind drifted back to their vows. She remembered the way he had pressed her hand at the altar, the way he had whispered forever like a promise carved into stone. But forever, she realized now, could also mean a prison. She closed her eyes, but rest would not come. Something about Daniel's absence that night, the way his shirt smelled faintly of smoke and metal, gnawed at her. There were cracks in their marriage, and through them seeped shadows she could no longer ignore. Emma pulled the covers tighter, heart racing with a thought she dared not speak. If vows could bind them till death, then perhaps death itself was closer than she feared. Emma woke before dawn, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Daniel had already risen, his shadow visible at the kitchen counter. He was slicing bread with rigid precision, each cut measured, each crumb brushed away as though disorder itself offended him. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, her voice tentative. Daniel didn't look up. "I didn't like how you cooked the chicken last night, too dry. You used the wrong herbs." Emma blinked, caught off guard. "You didn't say anything." "I shouldn't have to," he replied, finally turning toward her. His gaze lingered, cool and appraising. "You used to know what I liked. It was always like this. Subtle corrections disguised as concern, instructions wrapped in the illusion of care." At first, Emma had tried to comply, convincing herself these details mattered because he valued excellence. But lately it felt less like care and more like surveillance, as if her smallest choices were being catalogued. She busied herself with the kettle, her hand steadying only once she had something to do. "I'll make tea," she said. "Use." "The green leaves," Daniel added. "The black one keeps me awake too long." Emma nodded, though she had chosen the green herself. His words landed like a reminder. Her instincts were never to be trusted. By nightfall, unease had settled into her bones. They sat across from each other at the dinner table, the candlelight throwing long shadows across the walls. Daniel asked about her day, but it wasn't a conversation. It was a checklist. Whom had she spoken to? Where had she gone? Why did she take longer at the grocery store than usual? Emma offered explanations, each one met with a pause that stretched too long. His expression carried suspicion rather than understanding. Finally, she snapped. "Why do you ask me questions as if I'm on trial, Daniel?" The fork in his hand froze. "Because sometimes I wonder if you're hiding things." Her breath caught. "Hiding? What would I even—" "You tell me." His eyes drilled into hers, a storm of doubt and accusation. "You've grown secretive. Different." Emma pushed back her chair, heart thundering. "Or maybe you've grown paranoid." The word hung between them, dangerous and sharp. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Daniel leaned back, a low laugh escaping his throat. "Paranoid, that's rich. You think I don't notice the way you look at your phone when you think I'm not watching?" Her stomach dropped. He had been watching. The phone on the counter vibrated suddenly, startling them both. Emma reached for it, but Daniel was faster. He glanced at the screen, lips tightening. "Unknown number," he muttered. Why would someone hide their name? Emma reached out. "It's probably nothing." Bam! Daniel held it just out of her reach, studying her with unnerving calm. Or maybe not. The phone buzzed again, then went silent. Slowly, he placed it back on the counter, though the suspicion in his eyes lingered long after the yow. Noise stopped. Emma turned away, pretending to tidy the dishes, though her mind reeled. She hadn't recognized the number, yet something about Daniel's reaction planted a seed of dread. That night, as she lay in bed, the faint glow of the phone on her nightstand kept her awake. She could not shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, was trying to reach her, or warn her. The phone's glow had kept Emma restless all night. By morning, she moved through the house like a ghost, her body present but her mind circling that unanswered call. Daniel had already left, for work, his cologne still hanging faintly in the hallway, sharp and suffocating. She waited until the sound of his car faded before picking up the phone again. There it was. One new message. Her finger hovered before she finally opened it. "You don't know who he really is. Be careful." Emma's breath hitched. The sender was still marked unknown, the words stark against the pale screen. She read them again, each repetition a deeper cut. Her first instinct was denial. Prank, wrong number, mistake. Yet the phrasing gnawed at her. You don't know who he really is. Whoever sent it wasn't trying to sell her something. They were warning her. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the message until the edges of the room blurred. Memories she had long buried began to surface. The nights Daniel had come home late, the smell of smoke or blood that clung to him, the way his explanations always sounded too rehearsed. The kettle whistled on the stove, piercing the silence. Emma jumped, nearly dropping the phone. She deleted the message on impulse, as though erasing it might erase the fear now lodged in her chest. But the words had already etched themselves into her memory. Later that afternoon, she tried to distract herself by cleaning, dusting, polishing, scrubbing, anything to drown out the voice whispering in her head. But as she passed Daniel's office, her gaze snagged on the desk. The drawer on the right side had always been locked. She had never questioned it, telling herself husbands had their private papers. Now it pulsed with possibility, as if it contained the answer to that anonymous warning. Her hand hovered over the handle. She tested it, but of course it didn't budge. That evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. He kissed her cheek lightly, almost performative, before setting his briefcase down. "You didn't answer your phone today," he said casually. though his tone carried an edge. Emma froze, forcing a smile. I must have missed it. I was cleaning. His eyes narrowed, studying her face for cracks. Then, as if satisfied, he let the matter drop. Dinner passed in silence, broken only by the scrape of cutlery. Emma could barely swallow her food, her mind replaying the message again and again. She wanted to ask him outright, to demand the truth. But the thought of his reaction made her blood run cold. Afterward, she stood at the sink, washing dishes, when Daniel came up behind her. He placed his hands on her shoulders, leaning close. You've seemed distracted, he murmured. I'm fine, Emma said quickly, too quickly. He lingered a moment longer, then released her. Good. I don't like secrets between us. His words sank like stones. She forced herself to nod, but inside she was unraveling. That night, when Daniel finally fell asleep, Emma slipped out of bed and padded back to the kitchen. She pulled open the drawer where she kept old receipts, scribbled on the back of one, and tucked it deep in her. The office smelled faintly of leather and old paper, a room Daniel claimed as his domain. Emma rarely entered, except when cleaning demanded it. But since the message, since that gnawing seed of suspicion, she found herself lingering longer than before, drawn to the heavy oak desk that anchored the room like a sentinel. The top drawers yielded nothing unusual. Pens, invoices, a neat stack of envelopes. But the bottom right drawer remained locked, as it always had. Emma crouched beside it, tracing the keyhole with her fingertip, her breath quickening. It would be so easy to call a locksmith or pry it open when Daniel wasn't home. Yet even imagining the confrontation chilled her. He would notice. Daniel noticed everything. She rose quickly, dustcloth clutched too tightly in her hand as if catching herself in a crime. But once seen, the drawer could not be unseen. It throbbed at the edges of her vision. A silent accusation. All day she moved through the house like a prisoner pacing her cell. Folding laundry, her mind returned to it. Chopping onions, she saw the drawer and the shine of the knife. Even in the shower, steam clinging to her skin. The thought of what it might hold slid through her like water. Documents, photos, something darker. That night, Daniel sat at the table reading while Emma pretended to watch television. The glow of the lamp carved shadows into his face, sharpening his jaw, darkening his eyes. Did you go into my office today? He asked suddenly, not looking up from the page. Emma's pulse spiked. I dusted, she answered, forcing her voice even. Like always, his eyes flicked to hers, too quick, too searching. And the drawers? She gripped the remote until her knuckles ached. Just the top ones, why? Daniel smiled faintly, but the expression carried no warmth. Nothing. I just like knowing things are left the way I put them. Emma managed a nod, but inside her, fear doubled. He was testing her. Later, after he fell asleep, she lay awake, the ceiling above her vast and cold. The drawer had become more than wood and metal. It was a wedge driven into their marriage, a vault of secrets pressed between them. She began imagining its contents with an almost fevered obsession. Forged contracts, pictures of other women, a weapon. Each possibility was worse than the last. Days passed in a haze of tension. She found herself second-guessing every movement, every word, terrified Daniel might sense her curiosity. He watched her more closely now, asking where she had been, who she had spoken to, what she had done while he was gone. Emma began to question her own reality. Was she imagining his suspicion, feeding paranoia with paranoia? Or had she finally brushed too close to truths he was desperate to keep hidden? One evening, while cleaning again, she lingered once more in the office. She pressed her ear to the locked drawer, absurdly hoping to hear something, anything. Silence answered her. She jiggled the handle, harder this time, until the wood creaked, in protest. The sound of footsteps in the hall froze her blood. Daniel appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, eyes narrowing as they landed on her. What are you doing? Emma straightened quickly, heart hammering. I was just dusting, His gaze slid to the drawer, then back to her. A long pause stretched, suffocating, before he said quietly, "Stay out of my things, Emma." He turned and walked away, but the warning lingered in the air long after. That night, lying beside him, Emma stared into the dark, her chest tight with dread. The drawer was more than a locked compartment. It was a boundary, a wall she wasn't meant to cross. But she knew, with a certainty that hollowed her, that one day she would and whatever she found inside would change everything. The house was too quiet. Emma stirred awake to the sound of absence, the empty space beside her, the cooling sheet where Daniel's body should have been. For a moment she thought he had gone to the kitchen for water, but as the minutes dragged into hours, dread pressed itself heavier against her chest. The clock read 2:17 a.m. Shadows stretched across the bedroom walls, thick and restless. She slipped out of bed, padded barefoot through the hall, and checked the kitchen, the study, even the garage. Empty. His car was still there. Her mind spiraled with possibilities. Work call, maybe. A walk to clear his head. But at this hour, without his phone, no explanation fit neatly, and none soothed her. When the front door finally clicked open near 4 a.m., Emma startled so hard she nearly dropped the glass of water in her hand. Daniel stepped inside, shoulders tense, shirt rumpled. The porch light cast him in pale relief, and Emma's breath caught when she saw the streak of red running down his arm. "Daniel," she whispered, rushing forward. "You're bleeding." Looked down, almost as if noticing it for the first time. "It's nothing, just a scratch." "That's not a scratch." Emma reached for him, but he jerked away, moving past her toward the bathroom. "I told you, it's nothing. I caught it on a fence, that's all." The explanation felt rehearsed, too casual, like words chosen in advance. Emma followed him, down the hall, her voice trembling. "A fence? Where were you?" "Don't start, Emma." His tone was sharp, final. He shut the bathroom door behind him, leaving her staring at the wood grain as if it might reveal more than he ever would. She returned to bed but couldn't stop staring at the sheets. When Daniel finally emerged, his arm bandaged, he slid beneath the covers with mechanical ease. Within minutes, his breathing deepened, feigning or real. She couldn't tell. Emma shifted, and her hand brushed against something damp. She froze. Slowly, she pulled back the blanket. There it was, a smear of crimson staining the linen, small but undeniable. Her heart raced. The blood was too much to dismiss as a scratch. Too much to belong to a fence. She lay awake until dawn, every sound amplified. The creak of the house, the wind rattling branches against the window, Daniel's steady breaths beside her. Each one felt like a mockery of normalcy. At breakfast, the tension thickened. Daniel buttered his toast with precise strokes, his bandaged arm moving stiffly. "You didn't come to bed until late," Emma said carefully, her voice pitched light, almost casual. He didn't look up. "I told you I went out, needed air." Her throat tightened. "And the blood?" "Emma." He set the knife down with a clink, meeting her eyes at last. His gaze was steady, cold. "Drop it." The command silenced her, but inside her thoughts churned. He was hiding something. She could feel it in the marrow of her bones. Later, alone, Emma stripped the bed. As she carried the sheets to the laundry, her hands shook. The bloodstains bloomed against the white fabric like roses, dark and accusing. She pressed her face into the cloth, inhaling the metallic tang. Memories rushed back. The locked drawer, the message warning her, the paranoia that dripped from Daniel's every word. Now the evidence stained her own bed. Impossible to ignore. She washed the sheets twice, 3 times, until the stains faded to a ghostly pink. But the image had already burned itself into her memory. That night, when Daniel slipped into bed beside her, she flinched at the weight of his body against hers. She closed her eyes, her pulse pounding. She wanted to believe him, to pretend this was all a misunderstanding. But in the darkness, with the faint rustle of fabric around them, the words from their wedding vows returned unbidden. "Till death do us part." And Emma couldn't stop wondering, Was Daniel preparing for death to come sooner than she imagined? The two days after the blood-stained sheets passed like walking on glass. Emma spoke little, moving carefully through the house, waiting for Daniel's temper or explanations to surface. But he gave her neither. Instead, he carried himself with the same calm precision as always, as though nothing had happened. The silence was unbearable. One night, unable to hold her tongue any longer, Emma waited until he slid into bed beside her, the room cloaked in darkness. His breathing had just begun to steady when she whispered, "Daniel, where were you that night?" He shifted. A long pause followed, heavy enough to make her regret asking. But then he sighed, low and tired. "You won't let it go, will you?" "Not when I wake up to blood," she said, her voice breaking despite herself. Daniel sat up, leaning against the headboard. In the dim light from the window, his face was shadowed, unreadable. "Fine. You want the truth? I'll give you part of it." Emma's pulse quickened. "I owe people," he said at last. "Money, more than you can imagine. Business deals gone wrong, partnerships I should never have trusted." His jaw tightened. "They're not the kind of people you cross without consequence." Emma stared at him, heart hammering. "Debts? That's what all of this is about?" "Yes." His answer was sharp, immediate, too immediate. Then the blood was nothing, he cut in. A warning. A reminder of what happens when you don't pay fast enough. His explanation landed with a dull thud. It had shape but no weight, polished like a speech practiced in a mirror. Emma studied him, searching for cracks. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I didn't want to drag you into this," he said, almost tender now. His hand reached for hers, fingers cool against her skin. "I wanted to protect you." For a moment she almost believed him. The way he looked at her, steady, deliberate, was the way he had looked on their wedding day. But underneath that gaze, something coiled, something withheld. "Daniel," she whispered, "what aren't you telling me?" His grip tightened. "That's all you need to know." The finality in his voice silenced her. She lay back down, his arm wrapping around her as though to reassure. But instead of comfort, the touch felt like a restraint. She kept her eyes open long after he closed his, the words circling her mind. The dream of women's faces haunted Emma well into morning, their whispers clinging to her like cobwebs. She tried to shake it off, but unease shadowed every step. Daniel's confession about debts hadn't soothed her. If anything, it sharpened her doubts. His words had been too polished, too complete. Real truths were never so neat. By mid-afternoon, while folding laundry, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Emma's breath caught. For a long moment she considered letting it go to voicemail. But something, curiosity, dread, both, made her swipe to answer. "Hello?" Her voice was tentative. A pause. Then a woman's voice, low and urgent. "Is this Emma, Daniel's wife?" Emma stiffened. "Who's calling?" "My name is Claire. I need to talk to you. It's about your husband." The laundry slipped from Emma's hands. "I don't know who you are." "I was with him." Claire pressed. "Before you, and you need to know what he's capable of." Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. "This is insane. Why would I believe you?" "Because," the woman's voice trembled, "I believed him too, and it almost destroyed me." They arranged to meet in a small cafe across town, far enough that Daniel wouldn't accidentally stumble in. Emma sat at a corner table, nerves rattling her bones. She wondered if she was a fool for even showing up. Then the door opened and Claire walked in. She was striking in a worn, haunted way, her eyes shadowed with old grief. Sliding into the chair opposite, she wasted no time. "You think you know him. You don't." Emma clenched her mug, words sticking in her throat. Claire leaned closer. "Daniel has a temper, charming one moment, terrifying the next. He knows how to make you doubt yourself, how to turn every argument so you feel like the crazy one." Emma swallowed hard. The words felt like a mirror. Claire went on, her voice breaking. "There was someone else, a girl named Lila. She disappeared. No one ever proved anything. but I know Daniel was the last person seen with her. He told me never to mention it, said it would ruin both of us. Emma's stomach lurched. Disappeared? What are you saying? I'm saying she never came back, Claire whispered, and the look in his eyes when I asked about her. She stopped, shuddering. It was the same look he gave me the night I left him. Cold. Like he was deciding whether I would be next. Emma's grip tightened around her mug. The room seemed smaller, suffocating. Her husband's debts, the blood on the sheets, the locked drawer, it all connected in jagged, terrifying lines. Why? Tell me this now? Emma asked, her voice hoarse. Because you're still there, Claire said simply. And you need to get out before you end up like Lila. Emma felt her chest cave in under the weight of it. She wanted to scream, to deny it all, but part of her had already suspected. Claire's words weren't shocking. They were confirmation. Daniel wasn't just hiding financial troubles. He was hiding a darkness far older, far deadlier. When Emma finally returned home, Daniel was waiting in the living room. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're late, he said. She forced. A casual tone. Traffic. His gaze lingered on her too long, probing, as though he could smell the truth on her. Emma's heart raced, but she held her mask in place. She couldn't let him see the crack forming. That night, after Daniel drifted into sleep, Emma crept into the hallway, her feet bare against the floorboards. She stood outside his office, staring at the locked drawer. Claire's voice echoed in her mind. You don't know what he's capable of. Emma reached for the handle. It didn't budge, but her determination solidified. Whatever Daniel had hidden, there, she would uncover it. She had to. Because now, the question wasn't just who her husband really was. It was whether he had already killed. The drawer haunted her dreams. Each night Emma would wake in a cold sweat, convinced she'd heard the click of a key turning in the lock, the whisper of papers shifting inside. Claire's warning had set her nerves ablaze, and now there was no peace. On the third night after their meeting, Daniel left unexpectedly, muttering something about a late errand. Emma waited until the sound of his car faded before slipping into his office. The air was heavy, tinged with his cologne, with that faint smell of leather and ink that always seemed to cling to this space. Her heart pounded as she crouched before the drawer. She had stolen the small screwdriver from the garage earlier, hands trembling as she slid it into the lock. The first attempt failed, the metal slipping with a squeal that made her freeze. But on the second try, the latch gave way with a dull, heavy click. The sound was final, irrevocable. Emma pulled the drawer open slowly. At first, it seemed ordinary. Folders stacked neatly, papers filed with Daniel's meticulous hand. But deeper, inside lay objects that chilled her to the core. The first was a bundle of newspaper clippings, edges yellowed and curling. She pulled one out with shaking fingers. The headline screamed back at her, "Local woman still missing after night out." Another read, "Police baffled by string of disappearances." Each article carried a face, smiling women frozen in time, their eyes hollow with the knowledge Emma now carried. Her breath came shallow. These weren't random. Each face seemed carefully chosen, preserved like trophies. Beneath the clippings lay a gun, polished, cold against her fingertips. She recoiled, her hand snapping back as though burned. And then, the photographs. At first she thought they were strangers, but as she shuffled through them, her blood ran cold. Claire stared back at her from one. Younger, softer, but unmistakable. The edges of the photo were creased, handled too many times. Emma dropped it onto the desk, bile rising in her throat. She kept digging, despite every instinct telling her to stop. More women. Some matched the missing persons from the clippings, others she didn't recognize at all. And then her stomach turned. There was one of herself, taken candidly, without her knowledge. She was standing in the kitchen, sunlight on her hair, oblivious to the lens. The room tilted. She pressed a hand against the desk to steady herself, her vision narrowing. Her husband wasn't just hiding debts. He was hiding women. He was hiding lives. A sound outside jolted her back. Tires on gravel. Daniel's car. Panic surged. She shoved the photos back into the drawer, clumsy with haste, slid the gun on top, stuffed the papers down, and forced the drawer closed just as the front door opened. Emma? His voice carried through the hall. Calm. Too calm. She wiped her hands on her skirt, fighting to steady her breathing, and stepped out of the office. In here, she called, praying her voice didn't tremble. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his gaze sweeping the room. For a moment she thought he knew, thought he could see the guilt written across her face, but he only smiled faintly. Couldn't sleep? Emma forced a weak laugh. Just tidying up. He crossed the room, brushing past her, and laid his hand on the locked drawer. The air in the room thickened. His fingers lingered on the handle before withdrawing. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. Some doors are better left closed, he said softly. Her stomach dropped. Was it a warning, a test? Emma nodded, throat too tight for words. That night, lying beside him, she clutched the sheet so hard her nails tore the fabric. She had seen enough to know Claire was right. Enough to know Daniel wasn't just dangerous. He was hiding a past, soaked in violence. But what she hadn't known was that he was watching her too. She could feel it in the weight of his gaze in the dark, the way his breathing shifted when she stirred. By morning, Claire's voice echoed louder than ever. Get out before you end up like Lila. Emma realized with chilling clarity that if she didn't act soon, someone else might disappear, and it might be her. The morning headlines confirmed Emma's worst fear. Local woman reported missing. Police seek leads. Claire's face stared back at her from the news alert, the same weary eyes that had pleaded across a cafe table just days ago. Emma's stomach churned, the coffee in her hand turning sour. She scrolled further, heart hammering. The report was brief. Last seen leaving work, never made it home. No evidence, no witnesses. Emma's fingers trembled as she locked her phone. A whisper in her mind said what she didn't dare say aloud. Daniel. That evening, Daniel strolled into the kitchen, loosening his tie. You look pale, he remarked casually, pouring himself a drink. Something wrong? Emma studied him, every movement magnified. The way his eyes lingered too long, the faint scrape on his wrist half hidden by his cuff. She wanted to scream, "What did you do to her?" But instead she forced her voice steady. Just tired. He smiled faintly. You worry too much. The words sliced deeper than comfort. All night she lay awake, the news article replaying in her mind. She thought of Claire's warning, of the clippings in the drawer, of the photo of herself taken in secret. If Daniel had silenced Claire, what stopped him from doing the same to her? The next day, Emma couldn't resist testing him. She placed the article on the counter where he would see it. When Daniel returned, he paused, glanced at the screen, and gave a small shrug. Sad world, he muttered, grabbing a beer. Do you know her? Emma asked, her voice careful, neutral. Daniel's hand stilled for half a second before he raised the bottle. No. Should I? Her chest tightened. That half second betrayed him. He knew. She was sure of it. Later, as she washed dishes, Daniel came up behind her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The contact made her flinch. You've been distant, he murmured. Is there something you're not telling me? Emma shook her head quickly, staring at the soapy water. No. Nothing. His grip lingered before releasing. Good, he whispered. Emma knew that if she waited too long, she would end up another name in the drawer. Claire's face haunted her, a silent accusation. You could have stopped him. The police weren't much help when she first tried. She couldn't go in screaming about her husband without proof. We need something tangible, the detective had said over the phone, his tone measured, skeptical. Recordings, documents, something that ties him to a crime. So Emma agreed. She would become their eyes and ears. That night, after Daniel left for a supposed business meeting, she dug through her dresser and pulled out the small recorder the detectives had given her. It was no larger than a thumb drive, black and unremarkable, but it suddenly felt like the most dangerous object she had ever held. She slipped it beneath the mattress, angled so it would capture every word that left Daniel's mouth. Their bedroom, once a sanctuary, was now a trap. When Daniel returned, Emma greeted him with a careful smile. He studied her, always studying, as if weighing whether her affection was genuine or forged. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "Just tired," she replied, echoing the lie she had used too many times. He nodded slowly, but suspicion lingered in his eyes. "You've been different lately, like you're holding something back." Her throat tightened. "No, I'm fine." But Daniel didn't let go so easily. He stepped closer, brushing her cheek with his hand. "Secrets, Emma," he whispered. The same phrase that had chilled her days ago. "They ruin everything." The recorder under the mattress felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. In the days that followed, Emma played the perfect wife. She cooked his favorite meals, asked about his work, laughed when laughter felt impossible. All the while, she pushed him gently toward confession. "Do you ever think about people from your past?" she asked one evening, pouring him a glass of wine. Daniel smirked. "Everyone has a past." "Claire," Emma said softly, watching his reaction. His hand stilled on the stem of the glass. For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped. Then he chuckled, low and dark. "You've been talking to ghosts." Emma's heart pounded. "She's missing Daniel." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "People go missing all the time. Maybe they don't want to be found." Her stomach churned. She forced a nervous laugh to hide the tremor in her hands. Later that night, lying in bed, Daniel spoke again. "You know, Emma, marriage is a dangerous thing. Two people bound together promising forever. Sometimes forever becomes a cage." She froze, every muscle taut, praying the recorder picked up his words. "And cages," he murmured, his breath hot against her ear, "make people desperate. Desperate people do things they never thought they could." Emma bit her tongue, afraid that if she spoke, she'd scream. The following morning, she slipped the recorder into her purse while Daniel showered. Each second felt like an eternity, every drop of water from the faucet a countdown to discovery. But he didn't notice. At the precinct, she handed the device over with trembling fingers. The detective gave a curt nod. "If he keeps talking like that, we'll have him." But Daniel was growing suspicious. That evening, he wandered into the bedroom while Emma brushed her hair. He paced slowly, circling the room with deliberate steps. His eyes scanned the dresser, the nightstand, the bed. "Funny thing," he said, casually. "How a room can hold secrets, don't you think?" Emma's pulse raced. Did he know? Had he found the recorder before she removed it? She forced herself to meet his gaze in the mirror. "I don't know what you mean." Daniel smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course you don't." He climbed into bed beside her, pulling the sheets up to his chest. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the real game had begun. The trap was set. But she couldn't be sure who was ensnaring whom. The silence between them had grown sharper than any blade. Daniel's eyes followed Emma everywhere now. Every movement catalogued, every breath measured. She knew the detectives had the recording, but until they moved, she was alone in this house with a man who could snap her neck in an instant. That night, Daniel came home earlier than usual. His tie was loose, his expression unreadable. He poured himself a drink without speaking, then set the glass down with deliberate care. "Emma," he said finally, voice low, "we need to talk." Her stomach clenched. "About what?" He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "You've been lying to me." Emma's heart stuttered. What are you talking about?" Daniel's lips curved, not in a smile, but in something colder. "Do you think I'm a fool? The police, the questions, the way you've been watching me?" His voice hardened. "You went through my drawer." Emma's blood turned to ice. He knew. "I trusted you," he went on, pacing now, a predator, circling, "and you turned me into prey." She backed toward the kitchen counter, fingers brushing the handle of a knife she'd hidden there days ago. "Daniel, please, don't," he snapped, his composure breaking, his face contorted with rage. You think you can trap me? You think you can destroy me with your little games? I gave you everything, Emma. Everything. You gave me lies. Her voice cracked, years of fear bursting free. You killed Claire and God knows how many others. The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel froze, eyes blazing. For the first time, there was no mask, no charm, just raw, feral truth. You should have kept your mouth shut, he hissed. He lunged. Emma grabbed the knife, but he was faster, his hand clamping around her wrist, slamming it against the counter. Pain shot up her arm. She screamed, struggling, the blade clattering to the floor. Daniel's grip tightened around her throat. I can't have you, he growled, breath hot against her face. No one will. Her vision blurred, spots dancing before her eyes. She clawed at his arm, gasping, fighting. Her free hand scrambled across the counter, searching desperately, until her fingers closed around the heavy glass bottle of wine he'd left earlier. With the last of her strength, she swung. The bottle shattered against his skull. Daniel staggered, releasing her. Blood streamed down his temple, his eyes wide with shock more than pain. Emma coughed, clutching her throat, air burning back into her lungs. She stumbled toward the knife on the floor, but Daniel was already recovering, fury propelling him forward. This ends tonight, he snarled. They collided, both hands on the blade, struggling, pushing, twisting. His strength bore down on her, forcing the knife closer to her chest. Emma's arms shook, muscles screaming. In a sudden surge, she shifted her weight, rolling her body sideways. The motion sent Daniel off balance. The knife jerked, and then slid deep into him. His eyes widened, disbelief etched across his face. He staggered back, staring down at the blood blossoming across his shirt. You, he rasped, voice breaking. You were supposed to love me. Tears blurred Emma's vision. I did, she whispered. But love isn't supposed to kill. You. Daniel collapsed to the floor, the knife slipping from his grasp. His chest rose once, twice, then still. The room was silent, save for Emma's ragged breathing. She sank against the wall, trembling, staring at the man she had once promised forever to. The man she had fought, feared, and finally destroyed. For a long moment, she felt nothing but numbness. Then the weight of it all crushed down. The vows, broken. The secrets revealed. The blood soaking into the tiles. Blue and red lights flickered outside the window. The detectives had come, too late to stop the violence, but in time to witness its aftermath. Emma closed her eyes, whispering to herself the words that had bound them from the start, till death do us part. This time, they had come true. The sirens faded, leaving only the hum of fluorescent lights above Emma's head. The interrogation room was small, cold, and smelled faintly of bleach. She sat hunched in the metal chair, her hands folded tightly. In her lap, the faint bruises on her throat visible under the harsh white glare. Across from her sat Detective Harris, the same man she had given the recorder to. His tie was loose, his eyes sharp but not unkind. A tape recorder between them clicked on with a hollow snap. For the record, Harris began, you are Emma Callahan, widow of Daniel Callahan. Emma flinched at the word widow. It was true, but it felt unreal, like a title belonging to someone else. She nodded. Yes. Emma, Harris continued carefully, we need to understand what happened tonight. In your own words. Her mouth went dry. Images flooded back, the flash of the knife, Daniel's eyes as the life drained from them, the vow he had thrown at her like a curse. You were supposed to love me. It was self-defense, she said. Finally, voice brittle. He tried to kill me. The detective scribbled something on his pad. We'll get to that. But first I need to ask, how long have you suspected your husband of violence? Emma hesitated. Every second stretched thin. If she told them about the drawer, about Claire, about the photographs, then Daniel would be branded the monster she believed him to be. But part of her recoiled at saying it aloud, as though naming it would also name her complicity. I started noticing things, she whispered. He lied. He hid things from me, and then Claire, she came to me, told me what he'd done. Claire Donovan? Harris asked, his pen halting mid-scratch. The missing woman? Emma's eyes burned. She nodded. Yes, she told me about a girl named Lila, about his temper. The detective leaned back, studying her. And then Claire vanished. Emma felt her stomach twist. His tone carried weight. Not accusation, not yet, but something close. You think he killed her, she said, almost daring him to confirm it. I think, Harris said slowly, that your husband was hiding something. But here's the problem.